Now, I want to go on to a different story here. Frank Kozik, an iconic graphic artist behind album covers, including albums that he did for Nirvana, posters and things that he created for the Beastie Boys, the White Stripes, Neil Young, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, has unfortunately passed away at a
Yeah,
young age at 61.
it's
He was
not
an
an
American.
age.
No, no age at all.
Not an age.
He was a yeah, he was a graphic artist, not a photographer. But photography is an art, and we should, as photographers, we should all be aware of different art forms and different artists, because I'm
Mm.
sure that photography was a part of what he was actually doing.
Yeah.
But he was a real, as I said, he was a real creative force of nature, and his work that he created and the success that he's achieved in a very short space of time took him to great heights. Self-taught artist in his late teens, he began creating artwork for friends' bands. Started designing posters. He used to paste them to telephone poles,
Mm.
and from there he moved into doing posters for concerts and everything. And I mean, it's all changed now.
Yeah.
Who pastes posters onto telephone poles and on walls and stuff.
No, it's all on Instagram these days, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but that all of that work, when you look back at it, it really stands. It's all very, very valid and everything. And he was responsible for designing a lot of logos, and he worked with brands such as Nike and Swatch, and he collaborated with a huge number of artists. And toy designers as well, which I found sort of quite interesting
Mm.
when I was looking at his work. Did some work for DC and Marvel, and
Mm.
created some superhero inspired versions of some of their work as well. So the chances are most of you have probably come across Frank Kozik's work, but have never been aware that he was the guy behind it. So I
Yeah.
wanted to give him a nod, because when it comes to, and we've spoken about this a few times, but I think so many people do, when it comes to album covers, that they were pieces of art.
Mm.
Some of the you look at some of the iconic album covers, Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon. Everybody knows those front covers. They all know, people, everyone can, if they see the Dark Side of the Moon album cover somewhere, most people will know that that's a Pink Floyd album cover. They may not even know the name of the album, but they'll know that it was Pink Floyd. And you'd buy, I remember the times when you'd buy vinyl, and I've got a really good sort of vinyl collection. Those are album covers, the Rolling Stone Sticky Fingers that had the guy's crotch on the front cover and a real zip on his
Mm.
jeans, if you managed to buy the one with the real zip.
Mm.
Um, you know, and all of those people used photography. Hipgnosis, which were they were an art design group based in London. I think it was a couple of Swedish guys, Storm Torgerson and Aubrey Powell, or were the guys that started it,
Mm.
and they designed, and their work included a lot of photography. The Wish You Were Here album cover,
Yeah, it's a good
the
cover.
the
Mm.
guys on fire. He actually was.
Yeah.
They had to. It wasn't
Well,
done afterwards.
stuntman.
He was,
Yeah, stuntman.
yeah,
And yeah.
he exactly. That's right. Yeah, and you pour over those album covers, and
Before the age of risk assessment forms as well. Just going to throw that one in
yeah,
there.
yeah. Can you imagine? And
Yeah.
actual fact, this is I know, it's just about to say, but the time, this also times in with this company Hypnosis, where a film is coming out. I think it's being released in the next couple of weeks, because I saw a trailer for it only just this morning,
I thought I
about the
saw
album.
something.
Yeah, about their album covers, and they designed, and they talk, and in this trailer they talk to Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, Paul McCartney. They talk to Liam, I think it's Noel Gallagher that they talk to as well, because these guys were iconic. And one of my favorite, the two of my favorites, was the Wish You Were Here one, with the two guys shaking hands. That photo of the two guys shaking hands, and one of them is on fire. But the other one that I still think, and I want to do this one day, and I've never done it, was one of the Led Zeppelin cover albums was In Through the Outdoor. Now, I don't know if you were aware of this, Mark, but that album was, when it was released, it came in a brown paper bag with Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin In Through the Outdoor stamped on it. When you took
Mm.
it out of the brown paper bag, it had an inner sleeve, and there were two pictures on that inner sleeve, one on the front and one on the back. And the photo on that, or was it just on the front? I think it was just on one of the covers, was a photo of a group of, I think, 7 people standing in a bar. And you had the barman, you had a person sitting at the bar who was lighting a cigarette. You had a guy playing a piano. You had a lady standing in a corner, and someone coming in through the door. So I think you had 7 people coming in into it. There were 7 people in this photo. But what Hipgnosis did was they released 7 different covers.
Hmm.
Okay, and each of those covers was shot from the point of view from each of those 7 people. So in actual fact, you see 6 people in the image, I think it is,
Mm.
but the view that you see is shot from each one of those people. Does that make sense? So
Yes, it does. Yeah.
the guy who's sitting at the bar, who's buying a drink, is lighting a cigarette, and you see the
Mm.
flame from his match. And as he's looking down, you see his view, and then you've got the guy who's that you see the barman, you see his view of looking
Mm.
at it. And I think that was pure genius. So they released
Mm.
7 different designs of that album,
And I
and
feel
that
like
was
that sort
before.
of thing is it's a bit of a lost art in some respects. Yes, I know vinyl's made a bit of a resurgence, but the most popular way to consume music these days is through streaming, and the artwork gets kind of left behind a little bit with that medium, I find, which is a shame, because there's no way a record company would have that kind of a budget for like all those different albums, but with different covers on. It just wouldn't be cost efficient these days. It's not something they would do. So I do feel in some respects that, yeah, the art has lost a little bit in some of these things.
It's a great little thing on that, where I think Noel Gallagher from Oasis is at the front. You know, when you were collecting album covers, it was like the the cheapest way of collecting art or something. You
Yeah,
know, instead of,
yeah, I've heard him say
which
that.
is great. And then there was Paul McCartney was very briefly says that that he wanted for one of his album covers something that had to be shot, but it had to be shot on Mount Everest. So Hipgnosis, I think actually they actually went out to do this shoot on
Yeah.
Mount Everest. The photographers went out there. I think that's what actually happened. But I mean, incredible. And there was another guy, but just give him a nod just to finish off. There's Peter Christopherson, who was also part of it, and he was responsible for some of the earliest promotional photography that was shot for the Sex Pistols.
Mm.
So you know, again, for so many people out there, you're probably so familiar with these images that were shot by Frank Kozik, and the album covers that were designed and produced and designed by Hipgnosis. You're probably all familiar, but maybe you weren't actually aware that who actually shot them, and aware of the amount of photography content that was involved in all of that. Um, and if you're not an album collector, record collector, something, just go back and look at an album. There's so many books on great album covers. It's a
Mm.
great book to have in your house. It's a great coffee table book,
Yeah.
just to have the best album covers. So good stuff.